Okay, so I know many of our clients will be surprised to know that we don't know a hell of a lot about growing fruit. We're not vignerons and we're not viticulturalists. Our experience and views on the fruit market come from what is actually selling and moving in the market. So if you contact us to sell, the following will give you a good idea of how we view the market and how we approach it to find and maintain a relationship with a buyer. In our experience, it's common for the producer of fruit, bulk wine or bottled wine to have an optimistic view of the worth of their product. We see this time and time again, and the result is usually that the supplier remains out of market until the product is no longer worth what it once was. And at that point, it usually has to be liquidated. I really advocate not falling into this trap. It's imperative that you know exactly where your product sits in relation to other product in the market. This makes it easy to be decisive in negotiations and offers a quicker route to sale. It also shines a path on what you should do going forward. Maybe your Cabernet is not as strong as you thought it was. Might lead to a strategy where prices drop but crop levels are increased. Effective benchmarking means putting in place a rigorous procedure that evaluates product in unbiased terms. Might save a lot of money and heartache to listen to some things that you don't necessarily want to hear, but it's certainly worth taking those opinions on board. Benchmarking needs to be a constant search for where your product sits in the market, because the market is always changing. So make sure you find a procedure to benchmark your property and implement that as part of your business plan. So buyers buy to a market price, but they also consider the bottle price point that they're trying to hit. Many vineyard owners are perplexed at the offers they receive from buyers. In our experience, most fruit buyers aren't out to screw the grower. They too have a business, and they'll be trying to get fruit at a fair market price for the product they wish to fill. So make sure you ask the question, what type of product is your fruit going into? If a winery has a product that sells for $10 a bottle, then they must buy fruit for that product for no more than $800 or $900 a tonne, particularly out of Western Australia. There's a little point in trying to get them to pay $1,500. It's not going to happen. So if your benchmarking has been done correctly and you know a bit about the intention of the buyer, then this gives you a much better idea on how to negotiate your price. So in our experience, buyers, it's more about maths than anything personal. So if a buyer does offer you a low price and you don't like it, politely decline. There really aren't enough fruit buyers out there to be throwing people off the property or to be too hurt about what price is offered. So ask about the price of the product they're willing to put the fruit into and work out your price negotiations from that point. So attached to established brands, the reason Margaret River, Coonawarra, Yarra Valley vineyards receive a premium is because there are so many active brands within the GI that sell for $20 and above. This offers plenty of chance to sell, but more importantly, offers greater chances of price increases for fruit as the bottle market moves. Selling to buyers who have active brands has a premium over selling on the spot market, and this is worth considering when ascertaining who to sell your fruit to and what price to charge. So if you've got a winemaker who's from a known brand and they've got a presence in the market, selling your fruit to that winemaker is a real plus for your vineyard. You can not only sell them fruit in a particular year, but you can use that to sell fruit to someone else in a subsequent year. So we really advocate trying to establish those relationships if you're able. perform at vintage. This one is kind of obvious, but as a grower, know that the winemaker who is easygoing during the year is going to be a different animal at vintage. The winemakers have all sorts of pressure on them from a number of different directions, and the best thing you can do as a grower is make sure that your fruit is delivered on time and to spec to that particular winemaker. So if you have a clean vintage and give the winemaker as few problems as possible, there's a much greater chance that they'll look at your contract going forward and possibly give you a price rise, or at least continue with the contract. So performing at vintage is crucial. The other point I'd make that we run up against with growers sometimes is country areas. Sometimes you can't get texts or don't receive emails or phone calls. I'd rectify that. You need to find a way around that and keep email, phone and text open at all times during vintage, and we would advocate at all times during the year. If you're hard to contact, it makes it difficult for a busy winemaker. So take that on board as well. Okay, so Western Australia and the Eastern States. Western Australia and the Eastern States are separate markets that mostly do not affect each other. The high cost of WA production, the low cost of many Eastern States producers, LIP restrictions, and the cost of transporting bulk wine or juice or fruit across the Nullarbor make for some substantial trade barriers. So in my view, a bad year in the East does not translate to increased prices for West Australian fruit, and only really a spike in demand for branded product out of Western Australia is going to lead to increases in fruit price, in my opinion. So look, WA fruit prices are really connected to WA brands and not so much to what is happening in the Eastern States. And I think the reverse is also true, that there's not a lot of material that comes from the Eastern States through to Western Australia. So vineyards should sell all their fruit. This goes without saying, but some vineyard owners are of the view that they would prefer to drop fruit than send a signal to the market that they will sell for a low price. I'm not in this camp. I think if you can get a price for your fruit, then you should sell it and get it into a bottle and use that experience and the wine that is resulting from your fruit to assist you to sell your fruit in the subsequent years. Any time you get your fruit into a bottle is, as far as I'm concerned, vineyard advertising, and increases the chances of your fruit selling in the future. So particularly if it's good. So I think sell all your fruit and take what you can get for the product. That's not a view everyone will hold, but that's how we see it. Okay, set a line in the sand, sell date. So as per my previous point, I think vineyards should sell all their fruit. To get to that point, what that may mean is discounting your fruit a fair whack out from ripening. There's no use, in my view, in discounting your fruit 5 days before it's ready to pick. Winemakers won't know about the deal, and invariably at vintage they'll be too busy to take advantage of it, no matter how good the value is. If you are going to, if you have made the decision that you want to sell your fruit and sell it for whatever you can get, then make that clear to the market a good, 4 or 5 6 weeks out from when it's going to be ripe. And this will increase the chances of a winemaker being able to take advantage of a deal. Winemakers still have to get a deal through their own decision makers, and often that's quite hard for big ticket items. So even for a cheap price, give them plenty of time on that point. Okay, cost price and market price. Cost price and market price are completely different things. My view is telling a potential buyer he is getting something at or above cost holds no weight, and we avoid mentioning it. I think it weakens the position of the grower or the manufacturer if it's bulk wine. So to lean on something has cost me X, therefore you should pay me Y is not a reasonable premise for a buyer, and it just makes them think they can get it cheaper. Far better off in fruit negotiations or any negotiation to lean on cards of value and service, these kind of things, than wheeling out cost price. Buyers won't have got their own set of problems, and they won't increase their price just because it's cost a grower X. So we avoid talking about cost price. We do talk a lot about market price. Rumours on the grapevine. Rumours are not a flash source for information on fruit pricing. It may be that your neighbour or a friend has landed a sweet fruit deal, and it may be that your fruit is better than theirs, but this is not an indication of a trend. You really don't know what the other party has to do to deliver that fruit. It may be exceptionally low cropping. They may be required to do a lot of work to their vineyard to get it up to spec. The buyer may not be trustworthy. There's a whole lot of variables that go into a contract. So just be very careful about listening to rumours, and you're much better off being connected to the market by speaking directly with buyers or engaging with a business like Winescape. So that's a much better way to approach the market than to listen to rumours about what someone else has received for their fruit. So making bulk wine from unsold fruit. Bulk wine with no home has risks. Aromatic whites will dump in price within 3 months of vintage. The reds will take 12 to 15 months to sell and longer sometimes, and all of this takes a substantial amount of money to get a return at a later date. Generally, if your fruit remains unsold, there is a risk in putting that fruit to bulk wine, and you may not get a return on the product. So you really have to think about putting fruit to bulk wine and get a number of different views on what you're doing. Another aspect of selling bulk wine is a lot of growers don't know that they must be licensed to sell their bulk, and I've seen plenty of people caught without a liquor license. So make sure if you do make the decision to produce bulk that you factor in that you'll need a wholesale liquor license or a producer's license. Be very careful about making the decision to manufacture bulk wine out of fruit. So look, even though I've never driven a tractor, we know how difficult it is to make a living from a vineyard. This is one of the reasons Winescape has been founded. So hopefully we can introduce more buyers to vineyards and make their companies a little more profitable. So look, thanks for watching, and hope you got a bit out of this video.